All right, I got John Gray back on the show for round two. If you don't know John Gray, you should. He is the #1 relationship expert in the world, famous author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. John, welcome back.
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Happy
So-
to talk with you.
So good to have you back on. I'm going to jump out. We talked about a lot last time, but I'm going to go straight for it today. I spoke to my wife after we completed our interview, and I said, hey, babe, did you know that John, at 72 years old, has sex occasionally for like 10 hours a day? And she said, no way, Joel. I'm calling bullshit. Ask him again on the next podcast when you talk to him. Ask him, like, what? Number one, how? And then number two is why? She's like, I couldn't imagine making love to you for 10 hours. I love you, but I just couldn't imagine that. All right, John, tell me about this.
Okay, so in my journeys of studying sexuality, I have a PhD in counseling sexuality, and psychology. So that's been an interest. I was a celibate monk for 9 years, pure celibate. So I understand the value of celibacy, which is your semen stays in your body as a man. And in both the East and in the West, ancient cultures all talked about that as the ultimate state of preparation for enlightenment. And also preparation for being smart. What they felt is that the semen was the juice of the brain's development for males, very, very important. And when you lose that, your brain doesn't fully develop, or it inhibits brain development. Now, what I now know to be the actual reality is that we have all these kids doing porn 2 or 3 times a day. They're losing semen. They got plenty of it, and they're losing it. This is life force. This is the juice that keeps the body healthy and vibrant. And I focus everything these days on how to have a successful marriage. A man has to have his masculinity intact and respect femininity. And a woman has to have her femininity intact and respect and appreciate masculinity. So there's distinction. We can go into those. But it's all very biological. Whenever a man is stressed or whenever a woman is stressed, we have a bias towards looking at negativity. If you have a bias at looking, it's like you're in a terrorist attack or you were a policeman, right?
Yeah.
So, you're looking for danger all the time, right? That's bias. That's why have men always done the dangerous jobs? Because we have a mechanism at the end of the day, we can forget it. Women can't. Their stress levels will stay high. If you measure women's stress levels in the workplace, and although workplace is not as cortisol producing as maybe your job as a policeman, what happens is still you're making decisions. Every time you make a decision or you sacrifice yourself for money, you make the hormone testosterone. When you're in danger all the time, you're making the hormone testosterone as a man. And as a man, what can happen is you use up that testosterone, but then you can forget the problems of the day. Then you relax, you rebuild the testosterone. So that's a mechanism. That's something that men can do. Women can't do that. They can't forget the problems.
Yeah, that's for sure.
This is where, we can all do pretty much the same stuff. I have no question about that. But when it comes to managing stress, we now have research showing that women in the workplace, they have cortisol levels twice as high as men's. And this is the workplace isn't even police women. That would be even more cortisol producing. We know that women in combat all get divorced. When they come back, they get a divorce. They're not capable of loving a man, their husband. Now, they'll be blaming their husband for it, of course, but their relationships fall apart. For our male soldiers, they also fall apart, but not as much as for women. Because when you're in combat, you're producing pure male hormones, and you don't have a balance of producing your female hormones, which is through love. You can't be feeling love when somebody's attacking you, right, as a policeman.
No, you can't.
No, you go pure to your male side. And we are built for that. We're biologically built for that. When a man's biology is such that, first of all, he can forget the problems of the day, women can't. So what they found in the study is that women in the workplace had, on average, and that's every woman, there's always exceptions, we're talking about bell curve here. On average, women had stress levels twice as high as men. That's very significant. And when those women went home, they did a stress test. As they go home, their stress levels doubled again. So this is the plight of women today. And I've written my books to help women, basically, and help men have happy wives. This book here, which is after I wrote Men Are From Mars, this is called Beyond Mars and Venus. On my screen, it shows up as backwards. Is it backwards for you? Or
No, it's not backwards.
Okay.
I see it perfectly clear. And that's, by the way, one of my favorite books.
Anyway, so that book helps men to understand women in a way that can help them to lower stress. It used to be that our role as men was pretty much what you did as a policeman in society, was to protect everybody. But now we have so many good policemen around, women don't need me to protect them, right? So when I was living in the Amazon, your husband is your protector. There's no police, okay? So you're grateful when he comes home alive. And you know what's interesting in the Amazon, since we started out with me talking about 10 hours of sex, we'll keep that on the, I'll get to that. Okay. But in the Amazon, they have sex every night. You can hear through the huts. Okay, every night the couples are having sex. And the women are multi-orgasmic. They have no romantic skills. They don't do any of the stuff that we're supposed to do in the books. What they have is they're in tune with their biology for that level of evolution. We'll put it that way. Wow. The women are only allowed by their culture to do things that produce female hormones. And men are only allowed to do things that produce male hormones. So one of the things that produce male hormones is danger, risk, uncomfortable, sacrifice, and difficult. Any of those things, which you did as a policeman, right?
Yeah, I did all those things. And I'm just thinking, too, as you're talking, I'm thinking about this map that I can envision that one of my naturopathic doctors and mentors showed me, the steroidal hormonal steel. And I know you know what that is. They talk about the where we see testosterone will get buffed up, especially during that stressful stage, and it will help make cortisol. Over time, and it could be good in the moment, but over time, if you enter a chronic fatigue or burnout stage, then it can be obviously negative. And for women, we see it just the opposite, right? I think progesterone stops getting made, and we see too much estrogen, and then we have that estrogen dominance, which is really prevalent, right?
Okay, so that was that doctor's opinion and his charts. I have a completely different way of interpreting all of that. Yeah. So let's just say that's one thing. He's not an expert on relationships. Now, what happens for a man is stress levels when there's danger. Okay, danger is dopamine. That's when you have danger. You know, people go, you know, novel experiences, like go to a new hotel with your wife and dopamine goes up. Well, there's no danger there, but it's new and different. But whenever there's new and different, there's uncertainty. And the bottom line of all danger is uncertainty. So that's why you can have something like you're fighting a battle out there on the streets. Your dopamine's up, your testosterone's up. Now there's two experiences of dopamine. One is always your testosterone will go up. It starts to go up. At a certain point, you lose confidence. If you're a man and you lose confidence, then your cortisol levels go up. So if you watch I'm a Qigong guy as well. I've been doing it since I was 12, 13 years old. I was in the front of karate magazines. I studied Qigong in China. And if you practice any of those arts, you learn to stay never emotional. You're always cool, calm, and collected. And you can stay cool, calm, and collected, no stress. If you watch any of these guys who know how to do this stuff, they're not stressed. See, they're not producing cortisol most of the time, maybe a little here and there, only when there's uncertainty and danger. But when there's uncertainty and danger and you feel confident, that's what raises testosterone. It's confidence. Mm-hmm. I learned that in the first time when I was taking classes from, I hired a guy to tell me what he does when these guys that go in the cages with the tigers. Okay, he says, I mean, you stand next to a tiger, they're gigantic beings, and there's 5 or 6 of them on their little stools, and he goes in there. And so he tells me, the basic things he told me were, when you go in, you always have raw meat in your hands, okay? That reminds them there's a reward. You're going to get some raw meat if you follow me. This is so, so important. Women, you can learn this about men. If you're walking around with raw meat, men will always be alert to give you what you want. Okay, that's called love. That's why men are in relationships is we want love. We just know we have to do all this stuff to get it. Women want love, but they can find love in so many different places. Evidence for that, which is a woman gets a divorce 9 years before she's married again on average. For a man, he's already looking online. Basically, he needs a female's energy to feel love. See, we are limited in our capacity to feel love. Love is ecstasy. Love is fantastic. It's who we are as beings. But what happens in the 3rd week of it in the womb, we all start out as little girls. We have no differences at all. But then boys have this Y chromosome. And the Y chromosome releases 23 genes, and their function is to override our female genes, certain female genes. So one of the female genes, for example, if we look at behavior, is that women are designed to make babies, right? And so their brain never turns off. You can't have your brain turn off when you have children. You have to be on all the time. For men, that little part of the brain that can turn off, that gets overridden. We have the potential to forget our problems. And that's how we saw that. And yet we have to develop that, because the environment, the culture that says, oh, men, you should always talk about your feelings when you get home. That will actually negate our masculinity. So one of the big problems today is all men are talking about their feelings. No, the only time you talk about your feelings is when your heart is broken. Your brother died, your partner died, your mother died, your wife broke up with you, you're left, and something happens to your children, somebody's sick. Okay, that's a heartbreak. Anything else, we're talking about problems that we can solve. Either you can solve it or you can't solve it, and that's what masculinity is all about. So at the end of the day, all those horrible problems are out there, but you can't do anything about it. So you have to temporarily forget it until you can do something about it. But a woman, her whole biology is based on something she can do all the time. That baby could be crying in the night. They need this and they need that. So women have this amazing intuition to know what people need, or at least with a baby. They don't know what men need at all. Okay, just want you to know that. They're missing the knowledge of what men need. They didn't need that knowledge before, because if you go down that village I was living in, the men are doing what their culture told them to do. And what their culture told them to do is that you'll feel best, and you'll get laid, and you'll make babies, and you'll be a hero in your family if you're a policeman and a hunter and all that good stuff. So we went out and did that, and we came home, and our wives were so appreciative, so grateful, because they didn't want to go do that. In a sense, what we do, men, all the time, we do, it's just taken for granted. There's a leak in the roof. Well, get up there and do it. Where the neighbors are giving it, well, you go talk to the neighbors. There's dirty trash. Well, you go bring that trash out. I don't want to go out there, They just take that for granted. It's like, well, you should do that. You're a man.
Yeah.
But see, why can't women appreciate men is because they've lost the hormone to appreciate men. When you're in a state of hormonal deficiency, imbalance. And that's what that chart that you were talking about shows, hormonal imbalances. I have another way of understanding it, but I agree with the chart. But what we know to be the case is, when there's stress, anytime a man is stressed, his testosterone levels are dropping. Okay, his cortisol goes up, his testosterone is dropping. When a man is not stressed, always his testosterone is up and his estrogen is down. So let's look at that dynamic. Okay, estrogen is all emotions. So there's times when you're driving your car, you get to put on your lights. I don't know if you did that part of it, but it feels really good. You turn on the lights, take off.
Dopamine right there, John. Big dopamine hit.
The big dopamine hit. I remember having a policeman in one of my seminars, and I was describing how if you have high levels of dopamine all the time, after a while, the thrill is gone. Guess what he told me? And that's what happens to police officers. They're always in this high dopamine situation that desensitizes receptor sites in the brain. And that can create all kinds of mental problems. Parkinson's can come from that. Alzheimer's can come from that. Dementia comes from that. I had that. And when I turned 50, I wasn't a policeman, but back in the 90s, I spoke in I was in the Kennedy Center. I was in the biggest theater on Broadway for 8 sold-out shows. I did every single biggest theater in America. I did and around the world. Okay, that's a lot of energy, and all the press wanted to do was just rip me to shreds. That whole 10 years, us #1 best-selling book on the list, #1 of all books. What was it for 5-6 years? Okay.
Wow.
And never did I receive a positive print interview. All they did is rip me to pieces and whatever. The only way I got famous is because on TV, people love hearing me talk. Okay, I'm a fun interview, talking about men and women, how we misinterpret each other. It's all playful. So TV was always kind of more playful until we got so political now. But it was like I was the darling of all the media up to 2000. And then they said he's too popular. I was taken off every show in one day.
Wow.
I was canceled in 2001.
I didn't realize that. I thought you were always very popular. So I did not realize that.
Oh, I was on every TV show. I could go anywhere they had me on the TV show. I didn't even have to have I never had a publicist. I did 18 Oprah shows. I did all these Today Show, Morning Show.
Yeah.
Barbara Walters did 3-hour program with me. You know, there were specials on it. It was huge during that time. And then one day, I'll stop. Just cut it off.
Wow.
And my publisher wouldn't print for me after a while. They're all part of the establishment. I'm considered a sexist, okay, by establishment people. I was teaching my talks in Harvard. I was teaching in Stanford here in California. Not allowed to come back, okay?
Wow.
I'm a sexist, okay, according to their point of view.
And probably a narcissist. That's the new term I hear being labeled. Everybody's a narcissist now.
Oh, that's the other thing. If a man's a narcissist, if he has any male behaviors, rather than what I say, if we want to determine a narcissist psychologically, it's not the definition. It's what all these people are saying. It's a big buzzword. You know, why?
Yeah, it's a big buzzword. Everybody's a
narcissist. And that's somebody who takes care of themselves before taking care of others. Okay, that's what they're labeling a person who takes care of themselves before taking care of others. Well, that's every soldier. You've got to take care of yourself before you give your life for other people. That's not a real narcissist. A real narcissist is incapable of having emotions and feelings. So if you're a narcissist, you don't have emotions and feelings. You can't feel compassion for other people. What we have is, so I tell women that, oh, why do I keep having narcissists? Well, first of all, I say, if you actually had a true narcissist, then you're a true extreme codependent. A codependent is somebody who makes other people's needs more important than their own. So you find somebody else who's making their needs more important than anybody else's.
I love that. So the women are actually creating this symbiotic dysfunction, but they don't even realize it. They don't realize
it, and they're exaggerating it. It's hugely exaggerated by these people out there. If you actually look at what a narcissist is, go down all the categories, it's not what men are, but you could easily confuse it with a man, because a man will always take care of his needs first so he can take care of others. You know, you got to have your gun, you got to have your uniform, but you know, as a Army guy, I'm a policeman, you're carrying all that crap around with you all the time. I feel so sorry for these guys. It's a lot but you do it without complaining. You don't whine about it. See, that's part of masculinity. Masculinity doesn't give excuses. You just solve problems. That's what you do. Yeah. All emotions, the emotional side of us, whether it be positive emotions or negative emotions, only can occur when estrogen levels go up. Now, when estrogen levels go up, anytime a man is in fight or flight, you're angry, you're fighting, or you're running away, you're afraid, guess what hormone's happening in your body? Estrogen. You're soaring estrogen levels, your testosterone is going down. So people always think, oh, you know, hypermasculinity is anger and dominance. No, that's men out of balance. Their estrogen levels are high. You have to clear this up. Testosterone gets a rap for all the problems. No, testosterone's kung fu master. And when it comes to sex, it's sex master. Now, for me, you asked me why I told you. Sometimes I have sex, 10 hours. So, first of all, I'll just tell a cute little story. My wife is also a sex master at Qi in China. Now, my wife of 34 years is Bonnie. I never had sex 10 hours with Bonnie, okay? So, but I had once a week, we had great sex for 34 years. And on vacations, we'd have it 6 times or something, a lot more. But, we got kids, we're growing up. The rhythm of once a week can be a great sex life. So don't say that. Now, I just happen to be what would be called a master of Taoism, master of Tantra, all that stuff. I was a yogi for 9 years. I still meditate hours a day. But put all that aside. I'm just a regular guy. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather, all that stuff. So what happened is when I first was dating her, she mentioned that she was a Taoist master, and she would learn from this guy who was famous in China. And so I said, well, I just casually said, how long do you have sex? And she says, one time, 8 hours. So that one time I did 10 hours, and a few other times I did 10 hours, just as, guy, I want to
make testosterone clearly, John. That was the whole goal. Yeah.
But also it was the night, I did it all night long, because the next day I was talking to 1,000 people. So if ever you're a speaker and you have or maybe even 2,000 people who paid money to hear you speak, that's a lot of energy. And I'm coming over to China, and there's jet lag, and so I'm up all night anyway, and all that energy is coming at me. So sex is really an important way to transmute energy. A lot of the who are the movie stars and all these guys have crazy sex lives, and they have to do drugs to burn off the energy. But what I teach is I don't just have sex. I say sex because you start out as sex, but it's making love. It's transmuting sex energy into love energy. And then what happens is you don't lose anything from it. And the ultimate of that is learning how when you're having sex for a man, and this is why sex is so important to men, is that it's one of the primary ways for a man to open his heart. Women just don't understand this. We have this gene, that these male genes that override our female genes, which would produce a lot of estrogen. We can't make the kind of estrogen that women make unless we have erections. You can't have an erection unless your estrogen levels are rising, but but at the same time your testosterone levels have to be rising much higher. Okay, so this is, you're aroused. If you actually look at a real narcissist, he can't get erections unless he's hurting people. It's the only way he can feel. Wow. So you've seen criminals. They like to hurt people. It's what it's about. Now, if you kind of look at, I've taught in the prisons. It's just a simple concept: hurt people. These guys have so much unresolved pain that they don't even know exists inside of them, and the only way they can feel is when they can hurt somebody, as opposed to healing the hurt within them. And we're talking about the real criminals who, one of them was a murderer, rapist, and I had him up in front of the room, and I get him to talk about his childhood. He's a little kid, and his father's beating his mother. He pulls out his father's gun and shoots his father, and the bullet goes in and kills his mother too, and now he's an orphan. Wow. See, that's too much pain for people to deal with, so they have to push it down. That particular case, I remember it because I was getting him to feel his emotions for the first time. He had no emotions. These are criminals. They don't feel what other people feel. Otherwise, they go, I don't want to hurt somebody, because you'd feel they're hurt. There's a natural thing. Well, that's why you'll have 90% of the people in jail are men, because men without loving mothers cannot feel their emotions, okay? Mm-hmm. Love helps to heal pain inside. And so this one guy I was processing him. I was hearing all their childhood stories, unbelievable. So I asked him, I stand in front of the room, big guy, twice as big as me. I said, how many kids do you have? 9 kids. He's going to be there 25 years. So I said, how do you feel about that? He said, I feel nothing. I said, well, how do you feel? He said, there's nothing I can do about it. You see, he's over, there's nothing I can do about it, so I'm not going to feel anything. Yeah. Well, because if he was to feel, he would feel tremendous pain of guilt and shame and fear that his children are going to they're not going to be happy. He'd be angry that he's stuck in this place. He'd be angry at himself. That's all that's going on that's too painful to feel. So I had him imagine all his kids in front of him, had him say all their names, and then one of them was Johnny, so I said, well, I'm a Johnny. So I'm going to be your son, Johnny, who's maybe 8 years old, 6 years old. And I just started saying, Daddy, we miss you. We miss you. When are you coming home? I need you. Boom. I said that. He fainted. Okay, it was too painful for him to even confront those feelings. Wow. He fainted into my arms, knocking me, and I just sort of moved him over to an empty chair. He plopped down there. But the point is, by the time he hit the chair, the other 32 prisoners who were in the room had all gotten up and walked out before he hit the chair. None of them could face the pain inside. Because what allows us to heal pain is when people love us, when they understand, when they're there for us. So this is where the criminal element comes from, is the lack of mother's love for the child. And of course, the lack of the father who would provide a mother who's happy, who can love. When a woman is not happy, she can't feel appreciation. She can't feel joy. She's overstressed. And that's the case. You look at all these women. I told you this study. The average woman, whether she's single, married, or with children, doesn't matter. Twice as high stress load as men in the workplace, and when she comes home it doubles, and for the men it goes down when they go home, because we have a mechanism to deal with that cortisol. We're policemen, we're firefighters, we're hunters, we're killers. We have to protect. This is who we are as men, and they've been trying to feminize us, and it just creates violent men. Men only become violent when their estrogen levels go high. So the only time my estrogen goes really high is only when I'm making love to my wife. So anyway, so how do I have sex over and over like that? It's just it's because I'm practicing it's like an advanced sex technique that ancient cultures only taught to the more enlightened people. And I spent my life as meditative yogi and enlightenment, all that stuff. Maybe people do transcendental meditation. It's a great beginner's meditation technique, TM. I was the personal assistant to the guy who brought that to the West, had a huge influence. The first research done on mindfulness was on my brain. He had it in all the centers because I was really good. I was very dedicated.
Wow.
And I'm the only one that I know was the only real celibate, which means you don't have sex with yourself either. Because if you find a real celibate, you can smell. They smell a little bit like semen when they perspire. The semen comes right out from under the arm.
Wow.
After I have sex, usually that's the case too. Because see, I don't release my semen. I'm multi-orgasmic, and that's teach whole classes on that. And I teach it different from some of the Montauk Chias and the other ones who have books on this stuff. It's all about trying to pull the semen back in. Okay, pulling the semen in. And for me, there's no effort to pull semen back in. It's a matter of transmuting it through love and communication while you're making love. One of my favorite techniques is, and I'll share this because it's so powerful, and you can do this with your wife. So yeah, I don't do it, but I've got about, if you got all that vitality, my wife just says I'm so powerful, I'm like there's all this energy. My energy will increase if I'm speaking to a big audience the next day. Okay, we're affected by how many people are thinking about us or reading your books or applauding you, whatever. And if you look at the Beatles, for example, I saw the Beatles when I was a kid, and they were on the Ed Sullivan show, and all the girls were screaming, and I went to see the concert, and I'm saying, I'm not going to stand up and scream. As soon as they came on stage, along with all the women, I stood up, and everybody was screaming. It was such a crazy, so much energy at that time. It was just, men were becoming more feminine. Here are these guys who actually, if you knew who John Lennon was, he was a real rough, tough guy, but they were dressed real cute with little long hair, going to their female sides, all wearing nice suits. They all sang, I want to hold your hand, harmony, love. So what that was is males now moving over to their female side. Whenever a man moves to his female side, it helps a woman to move to her masculine side where she feels balance. That's ultimately what making love is where I'm feeling more feminine. She's also in the passion of desire. Desire is your masculine side. Need is your feminine side. So it's balancing these forces. Now, I talk them very simply. Nobody's ever done this. It's just so biologically clear. If you look at when a man is stressed, anytime we're stressed, we will be making the stress hormone. When you have a stress hormone, you have a bias towards looking at negativity. Same thing for women. When they're feeling stressed, they have a bias of looking at negativity. What women do is they feel not enough. That's their feeling. Their bias goes, not enough love, not enough time. Most women can relate to that. Not enough time for me, not enough money. Their brain just fixates on not enough. For men, what our brain does when we're in stress is I'm not enough, okay? And then we get defensive. We get defensive because we start feeling I'm not enough. That's why, when couples are arguing, what is the man constantly doing? He's explaining, but no, I did it right. No, I have the answer. No, we have to feel like we're enough because we go right into not good enough. Whereas women go right into, I don't have enough. And if you were to look deeper, it would be, psychologically, I go deep. It's a feeling of unworthiness that women have. So this is the deep levels of all of us. If you really mistreat a woman, then she'll feel, that's the Stockholm approach. The Stockholm syndrome is you'll defend your abuser. And you might have seen that in your own work. A guy slaps a woman around, she loves him more. That's a sick kind of love. Because she's so afraid, as long as she protects him, he will love her. Because she has such deep fear. And this is a lot of women today, if your father punished you, this is really, we have a whole culture built into Stockholm syndrome for people. So you have parents who are abusive, who torture their children. They beat their children. This is crazy world. So we have a crazy world, and first of all, there's books by, well-recognized professors saying every politician throughout history, all presidents were either psychopaths or sociopaths. Okay. This is just established. If you look at narcissists, and narcissist is very similar to what a psychopath is. They just think so highly of themselves. It doesn't mean they can't be a good leader, by the way, okay? Because a narcissist is always going to think what's best for him. But in a sense, that's the essence of capitalism. Capitalism is you trust the market because what's best for me is for you to buy my products. And if I have a better product, you'll buy my product. So that's just, It's just extreme masculinity is narcissism, and extreme femininity is this whole woke culture of everybody should get the same. You know, we all treat everybody the same. We're not the same. And give everybody the same reward. Give free money from the government. We've seen this in every single government that's ever been socialized, where the government does everything. It's poverty. What allows us to be creative is to feel that I can do better than others. I can make more money than others. I can have a better life than others. I want my children to have a better life. And you know, that's, you know, when the world was filled with slavery until Europe, the white people of Europe ended slavery in the world. This is like, you know, people keep looking at white supremacists. Wait a second, we're the guys that ended slavery. It was everywhere. There were more white slaves in Africa from the African people, the dark people there, than there were in America of dark people. Slavery is so misunderstood, but what it did, it created generations of low self-esteem. There's no doubt about that. And America was the answer to that. We have rights. And just for another moment, I'll just share, most people don't know what America is, why we're so unique. You know, we say a democracy. There's democracies all over the world. They're all corrupt. They're all corrupt democracies. And, you know, ours has been hijacked to some degree, but we have this thing called the Constitution. We're not a democracy. We are a republic. We are a democratic republic, which means we do elect representatives to vote for us on laws. But those laws cannot violate the Constitution, which is the freedom to speak your mind, the freedom to protect yourself with guns, the freedom to have your own private property, which, by the way, we've lost that one. Most people don't realize that when you pay taxes on your property, you don't own your property. You can't own your own property in this country.
John, it sounds like you're talking about something that I'm very fond of, is the United States Corporation, but that's a whole nother topic.
I know, that's even far beyond. I'm not going to go there, but anyway.
I won't go there, John.
You bring out the best of me. What can I say?
Yeah, you and I are thinking alike on that one.
Okay, so no, we have a lot of illusions that we're living, but the biggest illusion right now that my expertise is all about, where I really can help people, is the illusion that we're being taught that men and women are the same and that we're not extremely different. So I want people to walk away with one of the issues. What will typically happen is a guy comes home from work, and if it's a somewhat stressful day, he has to temporarily forget stuff. Okay, so his wife thinks, now when she comes home from work, if she knows how to be feminine, she's going to feel, I need to talk about my day. I want communication. Okay, so we don't want communication. If we're on our male side, we want to stop thinking. Okay, now this is an ancient thing. This is why people were taught meditation. This is what the Buddha taught. You know, to be enlightened, you learn to stop thinking. Harvard has done studies showing just on average male and female, set a woman down at the end of a work day and say, relax, put electrodes on her brain, and her brain speeds up. And they say, okay, what are you thinking? And they say, all the things I should be doing that I'm not doing while I'm sitting here. Brain can't turn off. But I teach women how to turn it off. We'll get to that in a minute. And for men, they put their electrodes on men. They say relax. And without even any fancy technology, a technique to do, their brain activity slowed down. Now, my brain will slow down even more and will go into coherence. But because I practice, you know, some of these good meditation techniques. So I think every guy could benefit from that. But meanwhile, you can also benefit hugely by just watching the news. That's to forget your problems. What
about guys playing video games? I hear that as a big complaint. They'll come home and they say, hey, I need to decompress. And women can't stand it. They think it's childish. They think it's ridiculous. You know, what are your thoughts on that? Because you're kind of tying.
My thoughts on that is that's called cave time. There's good cave time, and there's not such good cave time. All right, so watching sports on TV is good cave time. Watching the news, good cave time. Even a video game, good cave time, if it doesn't go on forever. Mm-hmm. It's about, there's a need, I need my time, like say like 30 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes, an hour at the most, you know, because, and it depends upon my stress level. So, but the problem with the video games will be more addictive than the news. The news is addictive. Now, I have I realized the shutdown had a big effect on me. It had a lot of people. Because see, for me, I'm one of the people that didn't bother me because, you know, I can work out of my home. I wasn't suffering from not enough money. Although my career was crashing, I can't go out and give talks and whatever. Still, I have other ways of, you know, I'm a counselor. I can do that on the phone. So, on the screen. Well, I don't want to go out anymore. I stopped wanting to travel. I wanted to just come home and watch Netflix. I wanted to be, it literally made me more sedentary. Now, I'm consciously changing that by not watching movies on TV. A little bit of news is all I do. And that's it. I limit myself. And for me, I have the good fortune of, I just go make love with my wife. That's a nice distraction for me. But I'm now coming back to reading books. I used to read books. Now I just watch the X is great to watch for me, and then there's YouTubes, and then there's that all became like an addiction. We don't realize how powerful that is to overstimulate the brain because it makes you feel good. Yeah, and it does help you to recover your testosterone, but it also makes you more addicted to sedentary rather than moving from I lowered my stress level and now I have responsibilities of engagement with my family. So my wife has to basically, she helps me with this by asking me to do stuff. Okay, I think I have a guide. What men don't know is that when you're in the home and your brain is going somewhere and not on your partner, they feel left out. Okay, they will feel rejected. They will feel unincluded. So you have to have a limited amount of time and understanding this is my time for me, cave time. So what I do is the first thing I do is I greet my wife with a hug. She's number one. I go there, give her a hug. Then she knows for my routine, I'm gonna just either go meditate for 20 minutes or something like that, or I'm gonna watch the news for a few minutes, and then I'm coming back to her and I'm gonna give her attention. And what we do at that time is, so I can be attentive to her, I first have to rebuild my testosterone. Because see, whenever we do anything with our wives, if we love them, our testosterone will typically go down because our estrogen will go up. See, they're like opposite forces. Testosterone goes up when you feel independent. Okay, I have to do this, I'll do it on myself. I mean, the other day I was flying into LA from where I live, San Francisco area, and I wanted to get the cheaper flight. And also I like occasionally getting up really early. So to get the cheaper flight, I had to get up at 5:30. I love getting up at 5:30 because there's no question about am I going to get up or not. You have to, so that feeling, it's like the house is on fire. There's no choice. You have to do it. That's such a good feeling. Your testosterone just goes up. There's no like, well, can I get out of it? Can I not get out of it? Do I have to do it? Can I wait till the last minute? No, you got to do it. It's just, that's what it is. Why is that so good for men that have to produces testosterone? Women, when they feel I have to do something, they're also making testosterone. And anytime a woman is stressed, her testosterone levels are too high and her estrogen levels will be too low. Now, whether that be during the period of time from her period to ovulation, that needs to be a time where estrogen levels are going higher. So there's no estrogen dominance problem there. That's where it gets confusing when they talk about estrogen dominance. Yeah. The estrogen has to go higher at that time. It has to crescendo about right before ovulation. Then after ovulation, her estrogen levels have to drop a bit, and her progesterone has to be higher. Now, progesterone isn't feeling dependent, it's feeling social bonding, like I'm with other people, if you're an extrovert. If you're an introvert, then you have to be doing things that are solely for me, selfish activities. So this is my selfish time, a little bit like a man's cave time, basically, is it? If you're an introvert woman, at a certain part of the time. And so what they'll call that is estrogen dominance, which is very confusing because it makes it sound like estrogen's the bad thing. It's not that estrogen's too high. It's that her progesterone's too low. And her progesterone's too low because she's making too much testosterone. And testosterone uses up progesterone to make testosterone. So it all comes back to a woman's cycle. You want to give her different kinds of support at different times. And she needs to learn how to give herself support at different times. And without that knowledge, and I have 3 chapters to explain, the me time, the you time, the we time, the different hormones that get produced. And why do we need all this today? Did anybody need this knowledge before? We didn't need it before because it was very clear. It was very easy. Men did their job, which is providing for women. Women were dependent on that. And women had plenty of free time to do what they also loved to do while he was doing what he had to do. I mean, if you're going to have a woman have sex with you, love you, have a family with you, you have to make money. So, and now when women have to make money, they're on their male side. Yep. What do they need men for that they don't realize is what they need men for is to come back to their female side. So that all these wandering women go, I don't need a man. Why do I need a man? But you're not sleeping at night. You're taking antidepressants. You're taking sleeping pills at night. I was teaching at a medical conference in Sao Paulo in Brazil. I think that's where it was. And they said that 95% of women in Sao Paulo have to take medical sleeping pills, which are terrible for you, in order to sleep. 95%. So much anxiety, so much stress levels. And this is the world we live in today. Such high stress. We look at orgasms for women. Half of the women have never had an orgasm. A quarter of the women have had an orgasm with themselves and their vibrator. And then only a quarter of women can have an orgasm or has had an orgasm with a man. Okay, and even those, we'll divide that into some smaller percentage. Most women think an orgasm is what they get from their clitoris. That's a climax. Real orgasm is your penis is doing the job. But you need to bring the clitoris almost to orgasm, almost to climax. And then you keep the sex energy, and then they can go to multi-orgasmic vaginal orgasm. But men have to be able to last long enough and have enough estrogen to keep going, and testosterone has to be higher. So what research shows, and here's research again, you take a 25-year-old man in the prime of his testosterone levels, which, by the way, today is 20% lower than just 20 years ago. What's that about? You know, what that's about is porn. It's about masturbation 2 or 3 times a day. Their testosterone levels just crash. You're losing your sexual potency. So because I never ejaculate, I've learned how to be multi-orgasmic without ejaculating. It's quite an amazing thing. I can't imagine my 70s would be so fabulous. And not that that's the only thing in my life, but it's a good thing to have. My friends can't even, they say, "Oh, John, I've had it. I've been there. I don't need that." And they're getting old. One of my best friends, now his hip's falling apart. He can't go for walks with me, And of course, his wife is not interested in sex anymore. But where does it all go? What it goes is women depend on man's sexual desire for her potency. And when you're really potent, you don't rush. It's not fast. If you think back to maybe the first time you're really in love, you wanted to enjoy every moment of it. And if a woman was to go back to the time where she fell in love, what are you feeling at that time? What she's feeling is, does he like me? Does he love me? Am I the only one for him? Does he think I'm beautiful? Is he happy to be with me? We had an argument last week. Is he still angry with me? These are all insecurities that women have. If you want to feel the way you felt in the beginning, you have to feel those things again. And it's very simple for women to feel those things. This is my favorite exercise. I have all these biohacks that raise women's estrogen. And anything I do that raises my wife's estrogen will raise my testosterone, if I'm conscious that I'm raising her estrogen. See, a man has to do stuff. I'll put that reassurance exercise, I'll finish it. So what happens is, I just want to make sure I come back to why men should not talk about feelings unless their heart is broken. Then it's a different story, and I'll explain the difference. Otherwise, women are just so turned off to men today because they've created this monster. They want to know, what are you feeling, what's going on inside, and you're supposed to talk about your feelings. And if you have any negative feelings about her, now you've got a 3-hour argument. Well, I'm a little frustrated because you said this to me. I didn't really like that. Well, why didn't you like that? I mean, I'm just doing this, and you should. Huge things. When a guy doesn't want to talk, don't ask him questions. Don't demand he talk to you. This is the hardest thing I'm seeing with women today. And until they understand it, they just have to get. And it's like this. I have to use a comedian on this one, very popular comedian right now, one of the funniest skits I've ever seen. They all use my stuff from 30 years ago. I had a show on Broadway, but they have their own ways of doing it. I respect that. But she's talking about men. And she says, "Women, I've been through 3 marriages. Listen to me. I can tell you what you're doing wrong. Sure can't tell you what to do right, but I can tell you what you're doing wrong." And that you try to change a man. If you try to change that man, their last dying breath, they're not going to change. You can't change them. You got to accept this is who the guy is. Although she's been through 3 marriages. And that's true. If you try to change a man, you'll just get resistance because it's not loving. You think you're loving him. We want to be loved too. Don't try to fix me or change me. Just like she doesn't want me to fix her or change her. If she's upset, the worst thing I can do is explain to her why she shouldn't be upset. Well, you shouldn't be upset. It just happened, the other day we were driving a long trip. I'm driving, and the car in front of me just suddenly stopped. I mean, skidded to a stop, and I have to skid to a stop, and actually had to pull over to another lane real fast. So it was a jerky moment. And she's like, "What did you do? What did you do?" And she's all upset, she gets real quiet. Okay, so then
This sounds like my life, Rick. I'm laughing because this is
Of course, every guy goes through this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So she's like really upset. She's in fight or flight. You know, she has no capacity to give love at that point. But what I would have done in the past, I would have said, well, honey, it wasn't my fault. It was the guy in front of me who did it. You know, we could have crashed, but I saved the day by having quick reflexes and going over there. As if I'm expecting her to go, oh, well, then I don't need to be upset. No, her life's in danger. She's in the worst place a woman could ever be. So she's over there, and what I'm practicing doing, and it's not, suddenly you got this woman who's thinking you're wonderful, and suddenly inside she's going, I can't trust him, he's terrible, you shouldn't try that. You know, that's all going on inside. So I just stay quiet, don't talk. And I didn't, in this case, I didn't even ask questions because she doesn't want to talk at that point. So I just kept thinking, you know, she's such a loving person. I just started remembering how much I love her. And for me, I get to remember the last time I made love with her. That's one of my favorite things. Just remember, because I don't like this woman suddenly accusing me of everything, because I know that's what's going on inside of her. So I have to, in my mind, I just choose to go and think about how great sex was last night. You know, men, this is really important, okay? Remember, why are we primarily drawn to get married? Sex, okay? It's sex. And why do we want sex so much? This is the enlightened part of sexuality. It's because through sex, we get to connect with our soul. To a great extent, if without sex, we can't connect with our soul fully, because that's when we can feel the most estrogen, is in sex. Okay, when you have and the longer you can keep that erection going and the more you can express love, the higher your estrogen will go, the more you'll feel love. We just need to recharge. I mean, when you're a policeman, it's hard to feel love all day. You know, you're in a fight or flight state. You got to take care of people, and you're doing it because you're a loving person, but you're not feeling love all that time. And so this is the keys why sex is so important. And when I'm thinking about you as this, you know, amazing policeman, protector of us, I'm thinking about those Spartans. You know, see the movie, the 300 Spartans. You know, these guys are all muscle. That means they have no emotion. That means they can sleep on the ground. They can go without food. Dirty, dangerous, difficult, and sacrifice their lives, take pain, endure. You know, this is what the extreme of masculinity over there. And these guys are willing to die, and they all died for their people. You know, this is the nobleness of men. But it's also all that that's all testosterone in their muscles. Okay, so what then happens if they had survived, as in other Greek wars, what they would do is they would come back, and all of the unmarried women would come to the temple and have sex with them. Mm-hmm. And those guys, that would help bring them back to civilization, because since they're like animals, you know, it's just like fight or flight, you know, kill. And you got to soften them up again, to have some manners, to be considerate, you know, whatever. And it takes a woman's energy to balance that masculine energy, and then he can connect once again with the soulfulness of him. You know, this, because our souls are both masculine and feminine, but we're in a body as a man. I have to be anchored in my masculinity, make love to a woman, and now I'm whole. And a woman can be anchored in her femininity and allow a man to make love with her and make love back to him. But you have this mutual thing, and that's the way she can love her masculine and her feminine at the same time. So that's why, you know, making love is the greatest thing. And we're losing it. I'm telling you, in the Amazon jungle, they're doing it. Why are they doing it? They're doing it because men are doing masculine things all day and women are doing feminine things. And I remember once during my heyday, at least of popularity on TV, Saturday Night Live did a spoof on me, which I felt was a great compliment, but they really made fun of me. I have a thing on stage where I'll make a point, and I know it's funny, so I'll just pause and wait for the laughter. Just like, you know, and I do get it because I know everybody relates to it. I've done it doing this 40 years. And so they're making fun of how I do that. That was really cute. And then they had some of the guys, these comedians, they're interviewing them and say, well, I read John Gray's book, and I feel like a really man because I go into the woods and I do manly things. I chop wood. Okay, I remember that one. I chop wood. There's a study that was done long after that where they measured men's testosterone levels. If you're in a competition and you win, your testosterone levels go up. You can have the same performance, but they tell you on a computer that you lost, your testosterone goes down. All right? Wow. But what they found is it goes up so much when you win. If you chop wood, it doubles. It's much higher. There's something about actually chopping wood. It raises the man's testosterone level. And what you have to know is that when a man's testosterone level goes up in the presence of his wife or of a woman, but it's his wife, you know, it's going up in her presence, her estrogen will go much higher. Okay, so this is the dynamic of women experiencing men toiling for them. And the reason why I talk about that is I've had this guy, Jose, who's done the gardening around my house for now 38, 39 years, all right? So I always considered him the outdoors husband, and I was the indoor husband because, my wife is a gardener, and I'm a good provider for her, so she had plenty of time. Gardening was one of her things. Giving to charities was another one of her things. I found out when she passed and she died, she was giving to 200 charities. So, that's one thing a woman can do to keep her hormones up, which is to give unconditional love. Unconditional love is really great. Children all need unconditional love, but a woman can't give as much unconditional love if she doesn't have the conditional love of a marriage. Because see, a marriage is, if your husband does nothing for you, you leave him. If my wife is never happy with me, you leave her. I mean, this is, or you want to at least, maybe you stay, but there's got to be certain factors that go on there. There is an aspect of unconditional love in my marriage, which is I forgive her for everything, okay? But women will always say, well, how many times do I have to forgive him? I said, well, Jesus said 7 times 7. But what I say is, if you have to forgive him all the time, you have to take responsibility to understand how you're not communicating in a way that motivates your man. Because men need to be motivated. Right now in the work world, we're motivated by money. That's it. And why are we motivated by money? Because we know that money will take care of a woman and her family. That's the ultimate motivation. And then you get a narcissist who only cares about money, but that's not your normal man. He cares about, why do I want the money? I want the money in order for my wife to feel loved. Why do I want sex? Why do I want erections? All that stuff. Once it feels really good, but it feels even better for my wife. This is what women need. And women who are in touch with their female side, it's so soft. They want to feel that hardness. They want to feel it inside of them. This is like, a woman can't feel this unless her estrogen levels go really high and then her testosterone goes really high. So both those things need to occur, which is why it just is, I have a whole class on sex, which is Secrets of Great Sex at my website, marsvenus.com. I want to give people resources because it's a whole 6-week course, okay? So it's a lot, or 3 weeks, I forget, and exercises and things you do and frequently asked questions. This is a big topic. We need sex education. But one quick thing that most people don't know is men have to understand the biology of females. They cannot want sex unless their estrogen levels are double their normal level. That's the idea of foreplay. Why you have to take time to do things to stimulate estrogen is she can't feel a desire to have sex. She could willingly have sex with you, which will only drain her sexual energy over time, and she'll lose interest in sex. You don't want to have sex with her until she wants to have sex. But if you're waiting for her to want to have sex, she'll never want to have sex unless you do the things that allow her estrogen levels to rise. And this is biologically proven.
Yep.
When a woman's estrogen levels start to double, then her testosterone levels will go up. If a woman's estrogen is low, which means nobody's taking care of me, then her testosterone levels will go up. But she won't be able to have an orgasm. So you want to create a safety for women. I have to finish up very soon. I'll call you back.
Someone, John, you've got another interview. I know, you're a busy guy.
But just to finish, you can't stop in the middle of sex. So the whole idea there, you have to do foreplay. So you have to get into bed. You have to light some candles, make a mood. Okay, this is what men do, not the woman. You have to she needs to feel that you're taking care of her. And there's something you're doing for her. Matter of fact, every day I suggest for women to put their hands up, which means at some time when he's not in his cave, and you put your hand up which says, I'm going to ask you to do something and that will take less than 5 minutes that I could do for myself, but I want you to do for me. Because it's going to break the pattern of I have to, I have to, I have to. Remember I've said women get into this, I have to, I have to, I have to. It's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. Well, take off that straw and the camel doesn't break. So something maybe a foot massage, maybe make me some tea, maybe go into the trash, maybe clean out the kitchen, maybe make the bed, whatever it might be. Something that take less than 5 minutes. And a man agrees, if you raise your hand, you got my next 5 minutes. I'll stop anything, give it to you. But this is not in the middle of his work day. He's got to have his cave time, his work time. Then outside of that, you put the hand up. And again, once again, it's the women who won't do it. All my clients, until finally they really learn that he's going to do this. Men are willing to do it. Hey, we're willing to. go into the jungles and die for you. We can give you 5 minutes every day of just something that will make your life a little better. But what that is that's a surge of estrogen. Then you get into bed, you do some little things, make the bed nicer, their bedroom nicer, some nice music, or maybe a candle, something like that. Maybe go take a shower. That would be a nice thing. So whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So you're setting the scene, then you're cuddling together, and then you start out with this exercise, the reassurance exercise, which I think you should be doing every day, even if you're not having sex. And one of the 4 hugs you give your partner every day. That's another biohack. But and that one, she says, "Do you love me?" He says, "Yes." She says, "How much do you love me?" "With all my heart." She says, "Do you think I'm beautiful?" "Honey, you're so beautiful." "Am I the only one for you?" And my wife says, "Are there other women you're interested in?" "No other women I'm interested in. It's only you. I love you so much. Are you glad to be with me? Are you mad at me in any way?" "No, I'm not mad at you." So see, this is all going on secretly inside of women. So put it out there and let him answer it. And what happens is, because she's asking and I'm solving the problem, my testosterone's going up as I'm connecting to her. Because whenever men interact with a woman, their estrogen starts to go up. But I'm solving the problem, giving her this, and I will begin to feel my love more. The whole thing about sex is where men can feel their love more, because a woman is becoming more vulnerable. I mean, it's such common sense once you see it. What turns men on? A naked woman's body. Well, what is the most vulnerable thing a woman can do? Is become naked, right? So but physical nakedness after a while is not as big of a thrill. It's the emotional nakedness that can take you further and keep the passion alive. So then you're doing a little bit of that, and you're hugging around, bodies are moving, you're feeling pressing different places. Now you kiss. Couples stop kissing. You need to French kiss before you do anything. You got to kiss for a while, kiss the neck, kiss around, then you get a kiss. If the lips aren't opening, unless somebody has certain blocks on these things, I'm just saying the basic general things, then breasts. Breasts are so important. This is the kissing, is the beginning of the process. It's the increasing of estrogen. Then the breast produces oxytocin. Oxytocin reaffirms that it's safe to depend on this man. Literally, it's a hormone that allows estrogen to go to higher levels. And sucking on the nipples can be very, very powerful. Most women enjoy it. But what's happening is literally a hormone is producing that will be a precursor for the estrogen of the kiss to go even higher. But as the breasts are happening, this is all building up, oxytocin, estrogen. Then you go to the clit. Now you need to stimulate the clit for a little while, but not too much and not too little. Okay, the clit is only there to help her feel desire. Clit produces testosterone, and a lot of women will climax just on the clit, and then there's no energy left where she's feeling, I need you to penetrate me. So you bring her to the point, almost climax for her. Don't give it to her. This is the whole thing. It's like a little teasing. You bring her up, done. Oh, more. You're done. And then bring a little bit more. Then she says, I need you. You start the words shift from I want this, I'm enjoying this, to I need you. That's when you put it in. And then when you put it in, you don't go all the way. There's 4 zones in the vagina. So you go through them one after another till you go deeper and deeper. And then sometimes you just stay in her and just let her shake around and move around, and you don't move your penis at all. It doesn't have to always be the same thing. And then there's different positions you can do. That's when it's, if I make love for an hour and a half or something, it's because we did this position for a little while, then I did another one for a little while. But each one becomes an orgasm and for her. And it's not the same kind of orgasm where I'm done, okay? It's there. After many of those, she'll be done. And they're out of their mind, which is what women want, is to get out of their mind, which is always busy, busy, busy. So the French would call that a little death. But they're usually referring to the clitoral orgasm, not the vaginal. And Freud talked about this, and everybody poo-pooed Freud because none of the women were having vaginal orgasms. I've even had experts come to me and say, John, there's no such thing as a vaginal orgasm. Haven't met the women I've made love to. Anyway, there's so much more for us to learn. And you asked me about the 10-hour orgasm. It was just the once or twice that I did it, only to beat somebody else's record. And it was all it is for the Guinness Book of World Record. But, a good 20-minute, 30-minute making love is fantastic. And then you can repeat that several times if you don't ejaculate. And over time, if you gradually learn this process of not ejaculating, it keeps a woman's estrogen levels up high. Because after a man ejaculates, his testosterone goes way down. And then suddenly her estrogen is not kept up. So it's like these are all amazing things we can learn over time. Thanks so much for interviewing me. I got another interview, got to run. So good to talk to you, Joel. Always a pleasure. You know, to me, you're ex-policeman, you're a hero. And I appreciate your service so much. And I know your wife's lucky to have you. And I will say that the wives of policemen and the wives of military people are often the finest people I've ever met. And because their husbands were in the line of duty and they appreciated that. You know, this is an amazing quality. I just have to say that. I mean, that's been my experience of working with women who knew their husbands could die. Because part of that is they appreciate that man for his willingness to sacrifice for them. And then you get these soft men, and then they come home and they're talking about their feelings and they're upset about this. And the number one rule for men, a good rule for men listening, you want a wife to want sex with you because everybody's losing that interest. Never, ever talk. Don't use words if you're angry. If you're angry, you can't talk. You just have to have a rule in your relationship. When I get angry, I just go like this. I need to think about it and walk away. We'll talk later. And she'll follow me. Oh, what about it? I said, I just don't talk. Don't talk. Just like I did in the car when she was also upset. Don't talk. Just drive. Just think positive thoughts. And, and then, we came home, got distracted by other things. You don't always have to solve the problem, men. Just back off. Let them not talk or let them talk, whichever they want to go. And when she's talking, you want to give solutions. Don't. Instead, say things like, well, help me understand that better. Tell me more. And now, women, if you want a man to learn how to listen to you, in the beginning, you should never talk about him as the problem. That's called complaining. Talk about other things. There's so much more to be upset about. You can talk about all the politics going, talk about what your kids are going through, talk about the school, talk about your job, all these other things. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about him or the stuff. The talking about problems is how women can forget problems. That's the way they do it. We forget it. We have that ability. Women talk about it, and then there's nothing more to talk about. They just have to say it. But what's actually happening biologically is talking about problems is raising her estrogen, and then there's no need to talk about problems. Then she can appreciate more what her husband does provide for her. And I just recently had a client who says, my wife always says she doesn't feel appreciated. I just want to give a quick answer to that. I gave a really long answer, and I have a good short one. And it's hard to appreciate your wife. Women are not going to feel appreciated if they're not appreciating their husband. Because the truth is, how can I appreciate somebody who's not appreciating me? When a woman feels you don't appreciate me, translate it. She doesn't feel you're doing enough stuff for her. Because women think if you appreciated me, then you would be helping me, you would be doing this for me, you would do that, you wouldn't get upset with me. But no, what she's saying is not, she thinks you're not appreciating me. What actually is happening is you're not respecting her unique and different female needs to be reassured, for you to do little things that you did in the beginning, and to treat her with huge respect, which means you would never articulate anger at her. This is what men learn in the past. You never hit a woman. Never hit a woman. I just saw a YouTube thing where a woman was giving a guy a hard time, and she banged him right in the face. And then the guy said, you better apologize for that or I'm going to hit you. And so she said, I'm not going to apologize for that. And he hit her.
Wow.
I have to say, I kind of felt like his wife then said, that's a consequence. You don't just go around hitting men. So it's not freedom to abuse men for men not to be angry back. But again, if I feel someone's mistreating me, I can stop the conversation. And that's the wisdom. Don't let it escalate. Because, as a policeman, escalation is what brings about violence. Once too much talking is usually the foundation of violence. And I have to say, my understanding is women asking men questions to get them to talk when they're angry. Because if I can get my wife to talk when she's angry and I hear her, that means she's talking about a problem and I'm listening without reacting back. Her estrogen's going higher and higher. Her stress will go down. So women assume talking is the answer to everything. It's not. Men have to stop talking, do something to solve problems, make themselves feel good, and then come back and do things to make their wife happy.
So good. John Gray, I could talk to you forever.
I know, it's so much fun to talk to you. You inspire me.
We didn't even get into lithium, or I had a whole bunch of other questions. I'll bring you back for round 3.
Let's do round 3 on lithium. And I'll tell you another thing. I want to just say this. People can know this. My website's marsvenus.com. And I didn't get into it. It's partly because you don't need to lose any weight. But the number one testosterone reducer in men is belly fat. And the number one reducer of estrogen in women is belly fat. This is a reality that's happening today. And I have figured out, with 3 different researchers a system where you eat more and you lose weight. And if people want to learn about that, there's been 3 peer-reviewed studies showing that if you have protein in the morning, like double your normal amount, protein at lunch, double your protein at dinner, double the amount, and protein before bed. These are like shakes you can add to. Eat what you want. Eat way more food. You will burn fat and build muscle mass and restore your metabolism so you don't keep putting on fat. This is a huge scientific breakthrough. None of these diets work because anytime you ever reduce calories, you're going to lose weight, but it will come back more because you lose your metabolism. So this is how you rebuild your metabolism. In 3 weeks during this program, I'm so excited about it, I lost 2.5 inches off my belly. You know where they measure around the belly, where you relax your belly and stick it out?
Just fat, yeah.
2.5, that's pure fat, and that's what makes you at risk for heart disease, lowers your energy. It's just a sign that your metabolism is weak. And we should be able to, eat like we could when we were younger, although hopefully we can be a little wiser in it and be healthier. But that's the metabolism. People, as soon as they get their belly fat, their metabolism slows down, and that's a function of it lowers testosterone in men. Anytime a man's testosterone goes up, your metabolism kicks into gear. Anytime a woman can feel her emotions, either negative emotions or positive emotions. And again, when I say negative emotions, I mean feeling your negative emotions and having them turn into positive emotions. Because women are like a circle. If in therapy, if they're talking about their emotions, I can guide them right back to positive emotions and they'll feel better. And that's called processing emotions. Women have to learn to do that. They can't do that, and they interferes with the natural process of coming back to feeling good if you've got belly fat. It inhibits your estrogen production, your progesterone production. So if anybody want to learn about this, they can contact me, and we can do a whole show on it as well. But
let's do that. I want to talk about that and lithium.
And lithium. We'll talk about that because it all goes together because lithium lowers stress in a way that it is helpful for people. So if they want to know now, if you go to contact at marsvenus.com, at the bottom of the page, all websites have it, contact us. Give me your name, give me your number, and either I or one of our team will call you and explain this program, how you can do it. Because everybody's saying, what are the biohacks to produce the right hormone balance? I'm teaching the behavioral ones, but if you're still carrying this weight around, it just stays, and how to get it off. Okay, so
that's a big one, John, and I bet you're tapping into leptin and ghrelin is my guess, and you're doing some amazing things.
All that stuff.
This is huge. We got to bring you back on because a lot of guys in the force that I still know, they're having huge issues. Everyone is on TRT now because they can't figure it out, and I don't think they need to be.
TRT is testosterone, right?
Yes, testosterone.
This is what happens to women. As soon as you take hormones, your body stops making them. As soon as you take testosterone, you're losing your balls. They're shrinking. I could raise your testosterone in 3 weeks by knocking off your belly fat. It's the #1 T reducer.
Let's go. Let's go. I'll contact your assistant and we'll bring you back for round 3. This is huge.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, John. Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.